guys, and welcome to a new video. This is already the fourth part of a four-part series about when I was traveling to Africa. So in August 2020 until January 2021, I traveled for 5 months, a little bit longer, to Africa. I started in Tanzania mainland to do a voluntary work there. Then I went to Zanzibar. Then I went to South Africa for quite a while and also did some volunteer work. And then actually I went to Namibia. And this is the video of me talking about Namibia, what I've done, the route, and what did I think of it. I need to go a little bit back of me being in South Africa. So somewhere in South Africa I met a girl, and then I was in Cape Town and this girl was there as well. So we texted and we were like, are you still up for going to Namibia? Yeah. So okay, we decided we wanted to go to Namibia together, and we also met a few other people, and we actually wanted to rent this big 4x4 car because that's kind of what you need in Namibia. But then 2 other people said, no, we don't want to do it anymore. So we were like, okay, we still want to go, but such a 4x4 is actually a little bit too expensive. And we wanted to rent camping gear, because you can do that in Namibia as well. And then just drive around, camp everywhere, because you can camp everywhere without restrictions. For like 2 weeks we wanted to do this. We contacted for a rental car, Europe Car, I think it was called. It's a very common company. And we also contacted for the camping gear, and then we booked the hostel that we were staying in for one night, and we booked the bus from Cape Town to Windhoek, and it took us like 28 hours. It was a night bus. We were like, if we can go by bus, why not? So together off we went to Namibia, to Windhoek from Cape Town, and I will show you now the picture of the whole route that we took. So the starting point was Windhoek, and there we stayed in the hostel, and the next day, very early, we wanted to rent the car, to go to the camping gear shop, rent our camping gear, go to the supermarket, buy all of our food stuff, and then go on our adventure. So the first stop from Windhoek that we wanted to go to was Etosha National Park. And we rented actually this car. Maybe it's also funny that you see the car. It was a Volkswagen Polo. Looking back, we should have rented a 4x4, but more on that later. With our Volkswagen Polo we drove to Etosha National Park, and we were planning on camping free and in the wild, but in Etosha you cannot camp free in the wild, so you need to book a campsite. So we booked one campsite and we stayed there for one night, and it was called Halali campsite, if I pronounce it well. And there we put our car up, and then for the first time we put our tent up, and it was so fun because before that I never really camped, especially not with my own tent. We had the best time. It was so fun. We were like, oh my fucking god, we're doing this. We're here in Namibia, putting our own tent with everything that we arranged. And it was so much fun. Let's go. And we went to the waterhole in the night. We saw elephants and rhinos and giraffes with the beautiful sunset. Oh my god, Namibia has the most beautiful sunset. Wow. So we camped there for one night, and then we wanted to drive out of the park to our next place. And everything was not really fixed yet, only the kind of route. And then we figured out to get out of Etosha National Park, you actually need a 4x4 because the roads are really this. And we didn't have one, so we needed to drive like maybe 30 kilometers per hour, sometimes even less, because else the car would fall apart. So our plan of getting out of Etosha Park didn't work, and we drove, I think every day we drove for like 8 or 9 hours. It was crazy. And then we arrived at Olifantrus Park. And probably it had to be like this because that camping, which was still in Etosha National Park, was beautiful with the sunset and also a rhino. Yeah, it was really beautiful there, so I'm really happy that we stayed there. It was not the plan, but at least, yeah, we were there. And then the next day we woke up early, got a breakfast again. We made everything in our own little stove and own little gas stove, and pots, which we rented from this camping place. So we drove the whole day through Etosha National Park. Just wanted to drive as far as we could until it got dark, kind of dark, and then put our tent up. And then we ended up in the middle of nowhere somewhere. We really didn't have any clue where we knew where we were kind of, but there was nothing around us. So then we drove a little side street very slowly because you need a 4x4 and we didn't have one, and we didn't wanted the car to break down. Oh, and sometimes the noises of the rocks on the car, it was terrible. But then in the middle of nowhere, we parked our tent, and it was beautiful again with the sunset. And we were next to an elephant foot, like a footstep. Which also was really scary because we just had a tent on the ground. So what if there was a wild animal somewhere who was curious about us? Because in the morning I went out on my tent. I went to the toilet, which we needed to dig ourselves. And then I was like looking at wild giraffes, and I was like, wow, this is the best place for a toilet I've ever been. But to admit, it was also kind of scary in the night sometimes. And then the next morning, packed all of our stuff in the car again, drove again. And then they already warned us, also by 4x4s, but every car almost has one tire that breaks. And we were like, okay, how many times is it going to happen to us? So where there was literally, we haven't seen anyone when we were driving. And then, yeah, our tire got flat. So we were like, fuck. But they did explain to us how we needed to do it. So we parked on the side of the road. And we didn't see anyone the whole day. And then when our tire got flat, all of a sudden 2 cars were approaching. And those were men, you know. And they were immediately stopping. Oh, we will help you, we will help you. So they switched our tires. And then we drove to Spitzkoppe. I don't these words, Spitzkoppe. To get our car tire fixed because they needed to fix it, even though the other one was on. If it would happen again, the second one needed to be good again. So we got our tire fixed there, and then we drove a little bit further because we didn't really know where to camp and how to camp. And we camped in Walvis Bay, just at a random place in front of flamingos. And it was super moist, and we were feeling so gross the next day, so we stopped at the gas station to wash our whole bodies, and the cleaner just came before us, so everything was dirty again, and we felt so sorry, so we did clean it a little bit. And then we needed to do a little detour because we wanted to go to Spitzkoppe, and was not really on the route, but before we went to Namibia we thought it was going to be easy because we could drive okay there, but looking back, oh my god, the days were so long of us driving. So we drove to Spitzkoppe from Walvis Bay, and we camped a little bit outside because there is a campsite, but you need to pay for it, and we didn't want to pay for it, so we camped outside of the gate, still with the beautiful views. And then the next day we could immediately go to Spitzkoppe and do the tour there. So we did 2 tours, one of what they were doing, like signs of back in the day and stuff, and also just another Spitzkoppe tour with the nature. And we walked around, and oh my god, the scenery It was crazy. It was so beautiful there. But after that next day of visiting Spitzkoppe, we wanted to go to like a museum where they were showing what they were doing really back in the day and the people who are still living like that. But then we got there and on Google Maps it said it would be open, but when we got there it was just closed. So we drove the whole day like for nothing, we felt like. Especially with the, because we couldn't go so fast and then, yeah. So we camped somewhere in the neighborhood there at a random spot again in the middle of nowhere. And after camping there, we wanted to go early again because we had a full day of driving. And then we went again back to Swakopmund and Walvis Bay. This day in the dunes we did like a quad driving, which was wow, the feeling that I had after the quad driving. It's in between Swakopmund and Walvis Bay. It was absolutely awesome and epic. We did drove a little bit further and then we camped in the middle of nowhere again with nothing around us, only the earth. I made a fire. It was full moon, so it had an effect on the water and with a lot of wind, so all of the four elements. And the next day we wanted to go to the Sossusvlei, so we drove the whole day again and we camped this time. So we drove to a camping site, so it was finally, we got a shower again and we got a normal toilet again, which was really nice. And then there was like this really crazy and big windstorm. You can do it. You can do it. But we camped there and the next day we did the Sossusvlei tour. You can drive to the starting point and then if you don't have a 4x4, they take you in like their own vehicle. They drive you to both places. And that was a really nice tour. So we both, I think the Sossusvlei and the Deadvlei, we both saw them with this tour. Then we went back to our camping site. And we stayed another night, I think, yeah. So we stayed in two nights in total at this camping site because the day before we arrived, then we did the whole tour and then it would be nice to just chill there for a little bit. They had a pool at this camping site, chill at the pool and then the next day go to the next place again. So then when we left this camping, we saw on like a sign that there was somewhere a castle. So we were like, oh, that's cool, let's visit that one. Looking back now, we should have never done it because there were floodings. And the road that we were taking was going through kind of flooding, so we got stuck and we needed to ask a farmer if he could get us out. So this is how that looked. Then we got out of this kind of flooding and he was like, yeah, it's super close, you should go now, instead of turning back. So we were like, okay, we will go. So we went to the castle, but it was not spectacular and then there was no one and it was also a very weird situation. So the castle is not really recommended to go there. It's not necessary at least. But then we had to go back and we needed to go back through the flooding again. So this farmer again got us out with his big truck. And then because of all of everything, it took so long, we camped somewhere on the side of the road next to a horse. Again, in the middle of nowhere, but there were not really people driving anywhere, so it was not really a big problem to camp on the side of the road. But because you can still camp everywhere. And yeah, that was okay. It was kind of, at the end of the day, it was funny what happened, you know? In that time, it was a little stressful, but yeah. The next day, we wanted to go to Luderitz, because in Luderitz it's also a thing people see in Namibia. But getting there, we got stuck again because of floodings, and we were digging all underneath the car, and it was crazy and no one could get us out. And then we were first the two of us, two girls, and then another farmer came and he had his helper with him and he really digged the car out of sand completely. Respect for him, oh my god. And then another farmer came and we all pushed the car, and one car like pulled the car, and then we got it out, and then we're like, oh my god, we need to stop doing this because what the fuck is happening, you know? But then we arrived in Luderitz, and there we went partying. And we didn't manage to put the tent up anywhere. So after partying, it was like 2 in the night. We still, or later, I think 3 or 4 in the night, we still had to put our tent up. So we drove a little bit up somewhere where we thought no one would come. But the whole time cars were driving because I think it was a company somewhere. So I didn't manage to sleep at all. I feel like it was terrible. But the next day we did the tour. I don't know what it's called, but I will write it here. We did a tour with also at a famous place in Namibia. The tour was really cool, and then we started driving and we were like, let's see how far we come after doing this that day. Then we wanted to stop somewhere because it was getting dark, but we didn't know where we were. So we drove in kind of a street, but it was private property, but we were like, yeah, we need to sleep. And then we saw 2 people walking, and I think they were helpers of the farmer who were living there, and we said, can we please put our tent up in this street? And he was like, oh, I will call my boss and ask if it's okay. And then his boss came and he was like, yeah, of course, if you leave everything good, you can sleep on my property. So we put our tent up there and we slept there, and the next morning we woke up early again, packed everything. It was the whole like this. And then from there, that day, we wanted to visit the canyon. It's the biggest canyon, or second biggest canyon, or something like this. We visited the Fish River Canyon, and then we started driving afterwards again. And then we camped for the last night somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And that was not the most beautiful spot. I think that was the least beautiful spot. But we enjoyed the stars that night and just enjoying our last little bit of not showering and not having a toilet and being dirty. The next day we drove all the way to Windhoek back again. We handed in the car, and then we stayed at the hostel for 2 more nights. And then I was leaving and my friend was staying and decided her plan next. But I had a flight going from Windhoek to Frankfurt, Germany, and then my family would pick me up in Germany. So that was what we've done in Namibia. It was a really intense 2 weeks, but so beautiful, so beautiful, and so cool that we camped in the wild in Namibia. So cool. Looking back, we should have rented the 4x4 because we had a big invoice afterwards because we drove many more kilometers than was allowed or something like that. So it did cost quite a bit, unfortunately, but it was 100% worth it, and it was so cool to camp and to see all of the wild animals and see the beautiful nature of Namibia. And I hope you enjoyed these videos and photos as well, which I put in the video, because it was such an epic adventure. Okay, and let's do a little conclusion at the end, a little quick conclusion. Rent a 4x4, 100% you need one, and also a rooftop tent, because that way you can sleep without being afraid that the animals will come in your tent at night. Second, if you're by yourself, you can go to Windhoek, stay in the hostel that I stayed in as well, Comedian Backpackers, and I think also other ones, and then you can book, I think, like a 3, a 5, and an 8, or even 2 weeks tour. And then you go with the hostel. It's more expensive then, but then they drive you everywhere and they know, and yeah, it is a possibility. So if I wouldn't have met a friend and we rented a car together, I still would have went to Windhoek and did a tour there with that. So definitely, if you have the opportunity, but if you're only by yourself, you can easily do that, and it's such a cool thing. It's really amazing that we did that. And Etosha National Park, visit Etosha National Park. It was also like the animals that we saw, it was really cool. And yeah, Etosha National Park was a big win for us both. I preferred it over Kruger National Park, but of course you need to be lucky with the animals that you see. And regarding safety, I felt really safe in Namibia. I felt really safe. Of course, there are people on the side of the road again who want to sell you stuff. That's not so nice. And also coming to you at gas stations. But it's just their way. But I never felt unsafe. So yeah, it was the perfect ending of a big trip for me. It was crazy. I remember the feeling of me sitting in the transfer to the airport. I was like, what the fuck? I've been here for 5.5 months almost in Africa, and I'm going home, and in like 4 days I needed to go to my internship, like my school internship. So that was such a different world from traveling in Africa to sitting on a desk doing my thesis. So yeah, looking back, which one did I enjoy most? I don't know. I really enjoyed all of the countries, but Namibia I would go back 100% and then rent a 4x4 because I think that would be another cool experience because the country is so big. Even though I feel like I saw a lot, there was so much more to explore, and South Africa as well, and Tanzania as well, and Zanzibar probably even as well. The countries are so massive. So yeah, if you're going to Namibia and if you have questions, please drop them in the comments because this way I can answer your questions. And I hope you enjoyed this video and this series of me talking about my trip to Africa. Hopefully next time when I go to do a big trip South America, I will take you with me with the camera so you have more videos of me going there, and this was more chatting about because I didn't have a camera back then. But yeah, I want to thank you for watching this video. If you have questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.